Okay, awesome.
Venice.
Great. So thank you everybody for joining. It's so exciting to be a part of the virtual conference, and it's awesome that we're able to pull this off, right? 36 hours, 2 days full of jam-packed sessions, and I hope you guys are having a great experience so far. My name is Venice, and here we are talking about women in leadership and what situation we find ourselves in and what types of things that we can do in our day-to-day lives to make a difference here. So before we get into that, I want to remind you guys again that we have an awesome opportunity coming up in 2021. So our reunion is going to be even better, right? Because of our experience going remote. So mark your calendars for the end of March 2021 for our Microsoft Collaboration Conference. Thank you to our sponsors who made this event happen. We have a lot of great names and logos up here, and we couldn't be here without you guys. So thank you all. Each of these guys has a session going on too, so you can talk to people at all these different companies and get to know them. Let me introduce myself a little bit more. My name is Venice Thacker, and I'm out of Atlanta, Georgia. I was born and raised here. I went to college at University of Georgia. I'm a huge Bulldogs fan, and I'm settled here in Chamblee, Georgia. And I am working as a business consultant at Perficient and within the Microsoft BU. So I'm working a lot with SharePoint and Teams and Power Platform. And so I love to get involved and be a part of events like this and meet other people that are in this community. So I've seen other people replace their picture, but I just love this gift. So I'm a happy astronaut for today's session. Reminder about our raffle that we have going on at this conference. You can submit your answers for different questions at the vendor booths, and you could be entered to win this Oculus Quest. So very cool opportunity. Visit that link for the form to do that. And we're also working to raise money for these charities. So we know that there's a pandemic going on. That's why we're here. And we're wanting to make a difference in that community and for our world as well. So if you could donate any money, everything makes a difference here. All their supporters and people, companies involved here, money went to these companies and causes as well. So they all made a difference, and we're hoping this conference can too. Okay, now that we've gone through all of the conference info, what are we talking about here? This is a huge topic that I just want to tackle a little bit today of what we can do. So where do we stand? When I say that, I'm talking about where do we stand in gender representation in the workplace in total, not just IT, all our whole economy. And what does that mean for our economy? What does that mean for our experiences? And what can we do about that? So we're going to find out and talk about a bit more how we don't nearly have enough diversity representation in leadership today. And there's a lot of history there. There's a lot going on. But what I want to focus on today is practical things that anyone, not just women, but anybody can do to help bring about more diversity in our leadership. So yeah, what we're going to be focusing on is just women's representation in leadership. That's what I know about, so that's what I feel like I can speak to. There's going to be a lot of ideas brought up, and not everything's going to fit everyone and not everything's going to fit every situation, but I hope that everybody can take away at least one idea of something that they can change and they can improve in their workplace. And really, why this matters is it affects our whole economy. It affects everybody's experiences in the workplace. So a lot of this advice is targeted at women, but there is going to be something for everybody. So I hope that everybody can take something away from this. So what is our challenge? I have a visual here that I'm sharing that has different percentages of gender representation at different levels of a company. So you can see at the bottom, total employees, women represent 44.7% of total employees. That sounds pretty good, I guess. You know, there's almost half, which sounds right about with our genders and how it's 50% men, 50% women. But as we come up this triangle of we move on to what it looks like at senior level managers and top earners and CEOs, we see less and less diversity. Specifically for this talk, we see less and less women in those positions. So much so, in fact, that when we focus on all of the CEOs, we only see 5.8% of them are women. Now, this is as of 2020. I really like this graph because I've revisited it a couple times and they keep updating it. So I have presented on the 2019 version and we're looking at the 2020 version now. But not that much has changed in it, actually. I've compared the two, and the only number that has changed is CEOs was at 5% women in 2019, and now it's at 5.8%. So we're not making that much movement. We're not having much success in getting those leadership positions and really becoming the leaders that we have the potential to be and we want to be. And that would really increase diversity in leadership as we see it today. So this is our challenge. This is what I want to focus on today. How can we create more gender diversity in leadership? I would also like to share with us that this is not just a woman's problem. This is really an opportunity for everybody, any gender, any industry. This is an opportunity because if we create more diverse leadership, that means we're going to have more diverse ideas. And more diverse ideas leads to more creativity and a better business, more opportunities for our business, and really more jobs and a growing economy. So that is the goal. The goal is not just to have more women in leadership because it would be equal and it would be fair. This is the goal for having more women in leadership because once we get there, once we have more diversity there, we will be able to give everybody more opportunities, men, women, all phases of life. This is going to be an opportunity for everybody. But at the basis of this conversation, I need to say that it is performance over everything. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, all these ideas that I'm going to bring up and practical things that you could do on top of this, the basis of doing those other things is you are showing results. You are doing a great job. You are performing at the level that you need to for your work, and maybe you are also doing the best job at it. So this is the basis. This is implied in all of the other ideas that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so what gets in our way as women in the workplace? Really, all of the issues and problems or opportunities for improvement that I'm going to talk about today. All of those are really grouped into how we've been socialized with our genders and how we're able to get our ideas across. So I'm going to bring up things in both of these, and we're going to focus on these two buckets. I recognize that other people may bring up other things for a history or stereotypes that people have, but I'm focusing on these two areas because I see that there are practical, actionable things that we can do in our day-to-day to address these issues. Okay, so the first one is getting interrupted in conversation. I was made aware of this statistic when I went to a conference in Chicago called ChiWitCon. And when I heard it, I just felt so recognized because there was this feeling to me of I felt like I couldn't get my point across sometimes and I was taking it personally, but it's not personal. So statistically, men will interrupt women more than they will interrupt other men. So in a study done, men interrupted other men 7 times in an hour when they would interrupt other women 42 times in an hour. And really, this is because of how we've socialized our children and how through socialization, we're teaching men that they should be assertive and dominant in conversation, and women stereotypically should be good listeners and polite. So because of that, we have raised our children that is how they should act in the workplace, and that's how they should communicate, which is no one's fault. That is just how our society has developed. But because of that, us as women are getting in general, shut down in conversation like that. That means we're less likely to speak up, and that means that we don't communicate ideas as often, and just not communicating ideas stunts growth in a career. So recognizing this one is just a huge step. I think being able to talk about this out loud, that this is a thing, that people communicate like this in the workplace, is progress. And if you see something, say something. This is standing up for other people, whatever gender you are. If somebody is trying to speak up about an idea and someone interrupts them, anybody on the team can say, whoa, let's finish one idea at a time. Once we get this ball rolling, we can fix this issue. We can make sure that everybody is heard and no one's interrupting each other. But recognizing this is happening is really the first step. And I added the Kanye West photo because this is a great example of it. There was other things going on there, but okay, so our next issue with socialization is the likability problem. This is a huge issue. This one's hard. What the likability problem is that as women in general gain success, they are more likely to be less liked. So success and likability are negatively correlated for women. Why is that? It's a lot of the same reasons of what we just talked about with getting interrupted in conversation. We are socializing. Our society is bringing people up to expect certain genders to act in certain ways, right? We expect that men should act in a masculine way. So you should do things that are ambitious and that are direct. And a lot of times those things are associated with leadership positions when in general, females should be nurturing. They should be selfless. They should be taking care of others and be a team player. And in general, those things are easy to be more of a supporting role and not get that leadership role. So because of that, when we see somebody not fitting our expectations of how they should act because of their gender, we don't like it. And we put those negative feelings onto that person. And that's where the likability problem is coming from. So I was researching how other people are talking about this. What can we do about this? Because this is a real problem, and this is harder to train somebody to think about gender totally different. So I've come up with a couple ideas that I've sourced, and this is how to deal with this today, right? I think there's another conversation of how do we deal with this in the long run? How do we bring up our children and our children's children to not think about genders in such specific ways and more overarching? Anybody can be aggressive in conversation, or hopefully not, but even if somebody is not as aggressive, they can be a leader. So that's the long-term idea, but the short-term ideas is women leaders have found that they need to be aware that certain people are going to expect different traits from them. So one woman leader said that she started all of her meetings by sharing something that was personal and nurturing and warm about herself. So by doing that, she associated herself with the gender stereotype that they were expecting from her. She didn't do anything different. She just became more personable about it and about her interactions. And she found that that really helped her. So that is something that we could do just interpersonally in our day-to-day lives to help combat this idea. The next one is, we're going to start off with a quote. So we're transitioning into the second about what you can change and what you can do to communicate your ideas. So the quote is, when we become overcome with the fear of being perceived as bragging, we've let stereotypes about what's appropriate for women to express cause us to lose our connection to that healthy desire to have our work be seen and recognized by others. So this is a quote by Tara Moore. She is an author and a life coach, and she's really capturing the idea that I think a lot of women face about feeling like they can't speak up and they can't share what would a lot of times be called self-advocacy. They can't say, hey, I did this on the team, because one, it feels uncomfortable to a lot of women to do that. And two, it can be seen in a different light when a woman's doing that. So we shy away from that, and we shy away from sharing that because we don't want to be seen as bragging. That seems more detrimental to our career and our situation than sharing. So one other issue, and then we'll get into how to address that. The issue is the good girl problem. This is how a lot of women are likely to put their heads down and do good work. And that works really well when you're in school, when you just work really hard and you expect that getting those results, people are going to see them. You don't have to share those. Those are going to, your work will speak for itself. That doesn't always happen. So we're going to talk about what we can do to share that work comfortably. Another thing that falls into the good girl problem is seeing our value in relation to others. So a lot of people will describe, a lot of women will describe themselves as their relationships instead of what they've accomplished or what they enjoy or what they do. They describe themselves as a good coworker instead of saying, "Oh, I'm really passionate about working on Power Platform." So that takes the focus away from what work that person is doing, right? Because it's sharing it with the team and it's diverting that attention, which is very typical of somebody starting out their career, especially. And the last thing is wanting to avoid being seen as unlikable or arrogant. This goes along with the theme that we've just been talking about. You're really a lot of times as the woman, you're balancing, do I speak up and share what I've accomplished? Do I say, hey team, I made this happen? Or do you say, I fixed this problem for us? One, if you speak up and you're too pointing at yourself about what you did, you may be seen as unlikable, and that could be more detrimental than to just share it with the team and really be supporting the team. So there's a struggle there. So those are some of the issues that we face when trying to share our accomplishments and our ideas, but having to balance the stereotypes that people are looking for from us. So what can we do to comfortably address this? So because it's uncomfortable for all the different reasons that we've just said to go about this in a traditional way of sharing with your manager or sharing with your team exactly what you accomplished. We're going to talk about some different ways of being able to promote yourself, but doing it in a way that maybe you don't have to say, oh, I accomplished this to a large audience, but you can point back to and say, these are the reasons why I deserve that promotion or deserve that leadership position. And they're concrete and they're not as in your face. So number one, a comfortable way to promote. Become a mentor. This is a great way to create relationships and pave the way for those others coming into your industry or your company. Becoming a mentor also is something that you can put on your resume. It's helping your industry, it's helping those around you, and it is a positive way to communicate your value and communicate ways that you are making a positive impact. This being said, also on this list should be getting a mentor. Any relationships that you're able to create in your company or in your industry that you can speak openly and trust somebody about any issues or any of your goals, even more so, is going to be positive and is going to be a great way that you can become more comfortable promoting yourself. Okay, so our second way is praise others and normalize it. So a lot of times it's more comfortable for people to give somebody else a compliment than to say what they did. And why we should also start praising others is because if we create a culture of praising or shout outs or sharing others' accomplishments, that will help people that don't feel like they can share their own accomplishments get recognized. And it creates a positive culture. But being the first one to speak up about somebody else doing something great normalizes that. It feels weird at first if you don't have a culture that shares in that way. But the more you do it, it's always hardest the first time. Something that my team has done is we've created in our sprint retro, we do a whole session on shout outs. So every 3 weeks, we say, okay, who has a shout out? And really, almost everyone gets a shout out every time, which is really cool to say, hey, we all appreciate each other. You know, you get in a situation that is really looking at our whole backlog and a team, it's a time to say, what did each person accomplish in a positive way so that they feel recognized? So that's one way that we've created a culture of praise and normalizing that, but doing that in a way that makes other people feel more welcome and more recognized is going to help this situation where people are more likely to just put their head down and work. This is a way to say, somebody sitting next to them that's seen that hard work can say, hey, you've been working really hard and you're getting results. Like, we need to recognize that as a team. This one goes right along with the one that we just talked about, advocate for each other. So especially when you're in situations of somebody said an idea and you really want to recognize that you guys are going with that idea, say, hey, thank you, so and so. Thank you for, we're really taking that to heart and we're moving forward on that idea, contributing and recognizing that that person had the idea could go a long way for that person to also see, hey, this was mine. I actually should own this, and it gives that person confidence too. Grow an online presence. This is an awesome way to promote if you are very uncomfortable sharing things in person or with your manager. So this can be done in a couple different ways, right? So growing an online presence in blogging, to have things to point towards, that you have commentary, you are really working on your career, and that's something that you can, in conversations with your manager, say, hey, I wrote 5 blogs on this technology, you can go read them, they've gotten compliment or comments. That's really something hard and fast that you can point back to. But this can also mean growing an online community, finding others that are supportive and interested in what you're interested. That's going to be a great way to help brainstorm of how to combat the issues that we were just talking about. So we have something like that in my company right now of it's a women in technology group that meets and talks about these different issues, a lot of which that we just talked about today. And we're able to share ideas of, oh, I really resonate with the challenge of I just put my head down and work and I don't document those things or communicate them or translate them to value adds for my leadership. So growing an online presence and community of brainstorming, how can we confront these things? How can we create more ideas of how we're able to combat these major issues that we talked about is really going to help us all address them. Next one, educate yourself. Educate yourself can mean so many different things, I know, but one, educating yourself for value adds in your company and in your business. So if you're in IT, which most of you probably are, identifying certifications that you can do and making sure that those are translating back to, if I do this certification, what more responsibility am I going to get? And so being able to communicate that is really important. Also, educating yourself on standards in the industry is really helpful, of researching what average salary is, researching how other people are combating the different challenges is going to be positive. Setting up a lunch and learn. This is a great way to show a value add to your company without saying, hey, I'm an expert on this. If you set up a lunch and learn and you're creating those opportunities and bringing people together, that will be seen as bringing value, and you won't have to promote so directly. Updating LinkedIn. This is a great way to show if you're making progress or you've accomplished something. Make a post on LinkedIn. It's a very active community, and you should definitely be updating that. Okay, so those are all actionable things that you can do to help yourself promote. Be advocating for yourself in a more comfortable way. Okay, the next one is another quote. Diversity is a party, inclusion is dancing. So I love this quote. I keep revisiting it. This is a quote by Verna Myers, who is done TED Talks and founded a consulting group, and she talks about overcoming bias. What I get from this quote is I am picturing that, you know, the party is being at work. The inclusion is making an impact, sharing ideas, and really being heard and feeling like your ideas that you're contributing are being associated with you and the value that you're bringing. So I feel like this encapsulates a lot of the feelings that why I want to talk about this topic, and why I think a lot of people can say, you know, you're at work, you are 44% of the population at work, you have just as much opportunity as the next person. I believe that the things that we've talked about up until now, the challenges, the good girl problem, the getting the interrupted, our socialization of genders is making it harder to dance at this party. So I want to focus on those challenges and those socializations and these actionable things we can do, so that we're not just at work in supporting roles, but we're really contributing and making the workplace more diverse and better for everybody. So just who I quoted just now, Verna Myers, she has a great TED Talk that I will link in the comments here that I hope everybody can watch. She talks a lot bigger than just what we're discussing now. She talks about bias overall, and she shares a lot of awesome ideas. So I'm going to share one of her ideas now about how to confront stereotypes, and we'll apply it to the situation that we're talking about. But this can be taken a lot bigger, and I hope that we do going forward. Okay, so speaking up and being honest. For our conversation today, what this means is talk to your supervisor about how you feel and how your goals and what you want to accomplish. Really communicate that. I think it's stereotypical of women to not say those things out loud and think that they're just known and they're just implied, but they're not. And so if you want something and you're working towards something on your end, you need to communicate and you need to speak up about that. Check yourself on thoughts of women bragging. This is something that everybody can do, men and women, and it's because of how we've all been socialized that we feel this way. So being aware of it is the first step, especially for me, for everybody. Of if you hear of a woman that is sharing her accomplishment and you say, oh, why is she talking about this? She's really bragging. That's a great opportunity to check yourself and say, wait, is this person, or is it some of my own bias, our whole society's bias of what they're talking about and how I'm perceiving that? Make connections with people that are different from you. So this is the idea that Verna shares in her really famous TED Talk that we're going to apply to this situation today, but can be taken a lot bigger. So Verna challenges her listeners with confronting your own bias. And she says, even herself, I have biases that I'm working against. We all do. It's just human nature to have those. But recognizing that that is in us and that we want to work against that is a great place to start. And so how she challenges us is by, once you identify that, go out and seek out a relationship or a connection with somebody that fits into that. So in this situation, if you are a man or a woman and you recognize that you have gender biases, really reach out to somebody that's different than you and make that connection. I see this helping any of the women on the phone by reaching out and becoming connected with men in a different situation than us. In my research about this, I was reading that women are really likely to compare ourselves to other women. So we can see this in career advancement, and we can see this in salary. We just compare with people directly like us. But if we are able to make connections with people that aren't like us, that are in our industry, but we wouldn't normally interact with them because we don't easily connect with them, seeking those people out to make connections is going to really help breaking down those biases and really putting a face in front of the stereotype that you may have in the back of your head. And the last thing is, we'll end with the quote. So we weren't given the right to vote, we demanded it. This was shared with me in the same ChaiWitCon conference that I mentioned earlier on a panel. I wish I wrote down who said this, but I don't have it. But I found a lot of inspiration from it, of the tenacity that we have as women to go after what we want. We have made so much progress. We haven't been in the workplace that long when you look at all of history, and I know there is so much more potential for everybody to really have an impact on all of our businesses, making a difference at all of our companies, growing all of our companies, and expanding our economy and making it a better place for everybody to work. So I hope you've gotten at least one idea of what you can do tomorrow and this week and this month to how we can make a difference on this. And with that, I will say thank you for joining us. We have this feedback available for you, and I please hope that you will respond to it. This is a never before seen event, in my opinion. I've never been a part of something this large and this awesome of a setup. So please give us any feedback on how to make this kind of virtual conference better. I think there's so much potential here for us. And I would love any feedback that you have for me specifically. And I hope you guys enjoyed our session.
Thank you, Venice. That's Rafael speaking, your moderator. And you can actually still use the Q&A for this live session. So if you're still watching live, feel free to post any questions to Venice so she can address right now. If you would like to continue this conversation after the session ends in around 10 more minutes, we'll be able to continue this conversation on the community zone on the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon website. With that, please use the Q&A and we'll be monitoring that. If you don't have any questions, feel free So disconnect or wait for the next speaker to join us. We're getting some questions on the Q&A, Venice. So if you like to take a shot and answer them.
Yeah, thank you guys. Let's see. It was a great session. Thank you, New Zealand, I believe that is. Please send your link to the TED Talks. I will do. Yeah. I will post them on LinkedIn. So my name is Venice Thacker, and let me pull that up so that you have a reference. But I'll share these slides, and a lot of links are in the comments, so I'll follow up on that. And then what is your experience like with some of your managers supporting you? My experience has been really well. I think the hardest part is your manager has a job as well, right? So your manager's sole position isn't managing your career. That is their role in your company, but they're also admin for your job, your role, and they're also probably your manager for other people, and they're on their own projects. So the part that I've struggled with the most is making sure that I get what I need out of my relationship with my manager and that I'm communicating what I want. So I spoke about how a lot of times we say, oh, my manager knows. Can't my manager see that I'm doing all of this and that I'm not having any problems in my project, so that I must be doing well? That is not the case. You need to be explicit with your manager of what you need and what you want and what you are looking for to be satisfied in your job and in your role and in your career, and what you need from them, right? Because they're a person and they're balancing all of the things that life throws at us. So I think the hardest thing that I've encountered is really making sure that I'm communicating properly with my manager. I've never been in a position where they have said no because you're a woman, right? Nobody says that. One of my managers has been a woman, but I have been in a position where I've been told, just give it time, it'll work out. And I think that is because I didn't communicate what I was looking for early enough and often enough, and I didn't write down what I've accomplished, right? Your biggest self-advocate is going to be yourself. You're the person who knows the work that you're doing the best too. So make sure that you are writing down and keeping track of what you are accomplishing, even if it's just in your own OneNote, and really saving that up so that you know that if you want a new opportunity or you feel like you can take on more responsibility, that you have the reasons why and that you can make your own pitch, because you have to pitch it to your manager and they'll probably have to pitch it on behalf of you. So make their job as easy as possible by doing those things and being your biggest promoter.
And there's another question there. Venice says, what's the best way to pitch myself to my manager for a new opportunity or role? I think you're almost answered that, but I don't know if you'd like to add anything else.
Yeah. What I have done, and I got this idea really from my company's internal WIT group, and it's in progress right now, so I hope it works out. But make a business pitch. Really do a formal pitch, make slides, put numbers in it, put what exactly you want and why you deserve that. And make it overkill. If you feel like you are, that's okay. I think that just feeds to the quality of why you would deserve that new role or what you're pitching. So that is the best approach that I've been able to come up with of even if you're on the friends level with your manager and you feel like this would be too weird, this would be too presumptuous, say, I've prepared these slides, I want to share them with you. Do you want to talk through it? You know, you don't need to put them in an uncomfortable position by making it too formal, but I think the more you can do to have specific documented things of, I deserve this role because I have written X number of blog posts. Here are the links. I have done X number of speaking events. Like, here are the recordings, and just making it abundantly clear for them with references of why you deserve that position. That being said, and I meant to bring this up, is, you know, business is done with people based on relationships and based on who people want to work with, right? So you always have to keep that in mind. You never want to make somebody feel uncomfortable or make somebody feel like put them in a bad spot. And really that kind of goes along with my first slide of performance over everything is implied under all of this. Really, relationships are critical is under all of this. So having a great relationship with your manager, making sure that you never catch them off guard with what you're working towards, making sure that that is tying value to their job too, and that they see value in what you're working with. Making them look good never hurts. Alrighty, we got 3 minutes left, I think. I'm happy to continue this conversation. We also have a session tomorrow that is kind of a follow-up on this session and my session later this evening. And I believe it's at 3 p.m. Pacific time, but it's an Ask the Expert session. No, it's Ask Me Anything. So it's really just a Q&A open for continued conversation, and it's going to be interactive. It's not a live Teams event. So that is at tomorrow at noon Pacific. The Microsoft 365 Ask Us Anything panel. I'll be there for any more conversation that you guys want to continue on having about this topic and others. So I hope to see you there.